Gee, are you okay? Are you like in mourning now that it's over and the matches are done, or are you celebrating all that it was?
Well, as someone with a Spanish mother-in-law, we've been celebrating. But there is a withdrawal, a definite withdrawal of what am I supposed to do in the middle of the day now? I guess people are going to go back to work, but more than anything, you see a lot of people just kind of shuffling around, waiting for the next thing to happen. I'm excited that the SEC Media Days has started, at least to take some attention and get some more electricity back in the air.
I asked you before, who were the contenders? You had Spain. I asked you, once we got to the 16, the knockout round, Spain. I asked you when we had our Final Four, you said Spain. And in the end, Spain. They are the champs in extra time. And how did Spain end up our World Cup champions?
Well, more than anything, they believe in the idea of the best defense is a great attack and a great offense. And so, unlike basketball, there's no shot clock that goes along with it. But the way that they're able to keep the ball, move the ball, make the other team chase, and frankly, fatigue the other team by them keeping the ball. And, in a lot of things, it's a lot more fun to have the ball than not have the ball. You can think about every sport is kind of that way, probably, unless you're a linebacker. So what they did was they smothered their opponents with their possession and by moving the ball and making them chase. And then because they do such a good job of supporting each other through these triangles, very similar to basketball, through these triangles, if they lost the ball, then they automatically usually had two or three guys around it to immediately, counter press and get on top of them and win the ball back. And I think that the stat came back that they would win the ball back within 8 seconds of losing it, which is pretty phenomenal. Now, they didn't finish their chances the way that, a lot of people would have liked, but for the most part, I mean, they kept the world champions from taking a shot for all of regulation, the entire game. They outshot the opponent. They outshot Argentina with the greatest player on earth. They outshot them 20-0 in regular season, and it's just astounding.
There was a lot of people afterwards. I say a lot of people, the social media universe, some experts, some wannabe experts, and some semi-experts talking about like almost the tragedy that was Messi's final match not getting a shot off.
Yeah, well, you know what? He's had
Your reaction, you just did the tough life, right? Come on. He has had enough shots in his life. It's not really a tragedy. Just call it as it is, G. You made me laugh with the That's how soccer go.
Poor Leo. Now it's got to go back to his palatial mansion on South Beach, and make $30 million a year.
He'll live. You're telling me he'll live. You're telling me he'll live.
To rub a couple dimes together for the next few days.
He's gonna survive this, is what I hear.
But you know what? It's interesting. I'll bring a Texas A&M spin into this. Is that I was talking to different in different text threads with buddies and folks around the country. The last time I can remember a game going 20 shots to 0 and the team was 0 winning, the only time I can remember was in an NCAA Sweet 16 game when Texas A&M, soccer went to UCLA, got outshot 20-0 and won in penalty kicks. And frankly, and it was, I remember Phil Stevenson, our associate head coach, at halftime saying to the team, "This is clearly our day, because if it wasn't our day, we'd be down 4-0 right now. But it's our day. We're going to do it." And that's I think that was everything that Argentina was just trying to hold on to was, let's get the penalty kicks, because Emi Martinez, our goalkeeper, is psych out master, great on penalty kicks. It looked like that was going to be the only chance they had, and then Portland scored in the overtime, and it was over for the Argentinians. But it was a definite 20-something year flashback for myself and a lot of people who were associated with that game out in California a long time ago.
It's funny. As soon as you said that, I remembered. It's, I wouldn't have recalled the A&M soccer match, but as soon as you said UCLA, I went, oh, that's, I don't know. I remember listening to it, or I think that was Matt Simon time before maybe Dave. I don't know, but I remember that match as soon as you started saying it. So, because I remember how excited it was, a big deal. UCLA was kind of maybe in one of their dynasty modes, or it was a 1 seed or something at the time, right?
Yep. And then, Jill Ellis, who was their coach at the time, went on to be, win a couple world championships with the USA as our national team coach, and now works for FIFA, lives in Switzerland. She still holds that against me. She'll bring that up to me every time we see each other. Like, I haven't forgotten about that one you stole from us a long time ago. I was like, yeah, it's soccer. Stuff can happen,
That's how soccer go. Again, that's the second time now. That's how soccer go. One of the things, the factoid, is Spain now holds the record for fewest goals conceded in World Cup history by a champion, and they broke their own record. Because in 2010, they gave up 2 total goals, not in the championship, but the total World Cup, and they gave up 1, right? In their total World Cup this 2026, in this total World Cup.
Yep, and that, and it was similar, but not the same. It was similar style, obviously different players 15 years ago, 16 years ago. But the main thought was, we're going to keep it, we're going to move it, and we're going to hold on to it and counter press when we lose it. The difference between that Spanish team that won the World Cup in South Africa in 2010 and then influenced so much of what they refer to as tiki-taka soccer, they're just tick, 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 little passes, which frankly would put a lot of us to sleep, I thought. The difference between that and this that you see from the Spanish team right now is they have lightning bolts included in this. You've got Yamil Amal as one player on the wing who can break things open. You got both their wingers are electric and can, so they don't go 35 passes to move the ball 35 yards. It could go from back to front immediately, kind of, snowbird type of analogy, and boom, it goes in, and now all of a sudden now they're in your penalty area. You can't touch them because if they go down, they get a penalty kick. So it makes it. It's the next level of what they were trying to do. And I tell you what, I've been a critic of the boring ticky-tack stuff. I like possession, though we like to keep the ball. Everyone loves to have the ball. But I think that this is it's such a nice little twist on it. And right now, Spain holds the Men's World Cup title. They also are defending champions on the women's side, and the Women's World Cup comes up in about 360 days down in Brazil. So, the big question is, can this style continue to go on? You've got, the Americans that are hungry to get their world championship back. It's going to be in Brazil, and I think that will be. It'll be interesting to see now the expectations now on Spanish football across by everybody is now so high. The level of error is so minute that I think it'll make for some interesting watching for soccer fans around the world. And I think that more fans have opened their eyes to what the game can be, and also how it can come in, and what the World Cup can be. It's been a marvelous summer, and I think it's, as much as anything, damn it, we Americans can throw a party.
Yeah.
We can throw a big event. And I was talking to a friend of mine, a coach, who was friends with the groundskeeper that was taking care of the stadium up in the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and so he actually served on the grounds crew of what we refer to as MetLife Stadium, New York Stadium to FIFA, but for five of the matches up there, and he was talking about how meticulous every detail was. I mean, just the fact that they bring out these ginormous, big ass, flags on the field before the national anthem. They've got everyone is it's it was such a well choreographed event that almost everyone I've spoken to who went to the game said it was as good as any sporting event that they've ever been to. And these are people who have been to NCAA championships, they've been to Super Bowls, and they're like, this was just, it was so well done. And again, that's not, you give FIFA their credit of holding the United States to what the United States can do, but this was an American triumph all the way around.
Gee, before we jump out of, well, I got some like meta questions about the World Cup for you, but I made fun about, the third place match. And, it's 4-0 England, and it was going the way I kind of thought it would. By the time the smoke cleared and, the final whistle blew, we had an instant classic.
Yeah, and entertaining as anything. And again, it's a little bit of what happens when the pressure is off a little bit. But, England and France, they've been rivals for several hundred years. And so it wasn't like there wasn't anything on that match. There was always going to be something on that match. But the fact that it just opened up and 10 goals are scored was, it was exhilarating. Unfortunately, the final didn't have that same exhilaration, except that you're crowning a world champion. But the England-France game, I thought was great. And I was super happy for all my English friends that, that they finished as the highest that they've finished in a World Cup in 60 years. So all the way around, there's so many superlatives to the event. And I think the third place match, of which you and I talked about last week, neither one of us were a fan of, making these guys play this game. But for the entertainment value of it, I'm kind of glad they did, because it was fun to watch.
For anyone that tuned in, it was, speaking of throwing a party, that's what it was. That was a game to drink to and eat to and hang out with your buds, because you get 10 goals in a match. That's a whole weekend of play in some leagues.
Oh, at least. Yeah. And there were some great goals to it. And on top of that, Henderson, who was in goal for the English, made some fantastic saves. I mean, he was huge in the game, and he's like one of the players of the match, and he gave up 4. So it's like, oh my goodness, how good is that you can give up 4 goals and not be seen as a scoundrel? And that's the way it was. It was that exciting.
So, gee, 3 months, 6 months from now, give me 3 things we're going to remember about this World Cup. Because, we're still fresh in the middle of it. What's going to be the lasting impression or reality of this World Cup?
I think the biggest thing is that the stars showed up and they played. I mean, they showed off, not just showing up. And so when I would talk about the stars, we're talking about, Kylian Mbappe. You're talking about Lionel Messi. You're talking about Erling Haaland, Harry Kane. The biggest names in the game came and they made themselves into forever idols for kids in their country, but for people around the world. And I think Erling Haaland, who is the big Viking striker for Norway, and unfortunately plays for Manchester City and not Manchester United, he's gained so many just worshipers around the world, and just casual followers. People who've never really followed the game. They're like going, right, this guy's pretty cool. Like the pictures he took in Dallas at the boot shop with a cowboy hat and his boots. He gets off the plane in Norway. He's got a taxidermy raccoon, drinking whiskey out of a shot glass that he picked up in Texas. And he's like, I'm coming back to Texas. He goes, I loved it. The people were great. I'm going to come back. But just the fact that these were the biggest stars in the world, and sorry to say, but the biggest stars in the world across the globe, and also showed that they're good guys. They've got a sense of humor. They're not too full of themselves. They're not pushing people away from autographs and things. That they're regular folks, and that was exciting for me. That was exciting to see, because you always want the people who are going to be in the spotlight to use that spotlight for good, and not be controversial figures, afterwards.
Oh man, I know this. My personal experience. I really enjoy soccer. I don't live soccer, and this World Cup is about as much fun and that's the word, as I think I've ever had in soccer, other than, I'm not going to lie, the time at Aggie soccer, but that's just so personal, right? That's a whole different version of the world. Other than that, this is the most fun I think of it. No, it is the most fun I've ever had with soccer. And it was the day to day. It was every day there was a story. Every day there was a Scottish army takeover. There was a match. Because if it wasn't a match, it was a group of people representing a country. There was just some story that made you feel inspired, whether it was play or countries or what. And there's not many sporting events that give you. There aren't sporting events that give you that. That's my World Cup experience.
Totally agree. And it's the most watched sporting event in history around the globe, but also the most watched sporting event in history here in the United States, as far as just the number of people who were, whether they were casual tuning in because what else is going on in the summertime at 2:00 in the afternoon, or they're, like myself, they breathe it and they want to know, and they're passionate about seeing these things and sitting and studying these games. So billions and billions and billions of people around the globe who took this in, and I think took this in and for the most part had a tremendously high feeling for what the United States is about and what the people are about. Now, FIFA did their best to try to mess with that, because they brought in, quote, hydration breaks, which looked a lot like commercial breaks between quarters in an American football game.
What?
And of course, they would never be trying to make money on the backs of the game, but little things like that. Okay, so there's the hydration break. You need it because in Kansas City it's damn hot and pretty darn humid. Same thing in Miami. But, in Atlanta and NRG Stadium and AT&T Stadium, it's 72 degrees. So do you really need a hydration break? Sure you do, because that's more fair for everybody, especially the bankers back in Switzerland at FIFA. So that I think was one of the things that we'll see if that carries on and goes forward. Now, here in college soccer, we've had hydration breaks because I tell you, yesterday here in College Station at about 6:00, I looked at weather app. It was 99 degrees, but the feels like temperature was 116. That's a day where you need a hydration break in there at some point. And there's things that they do that the NCAA does just for the safety of the players, but it's not about the safety of the advertisers. It's just about the players. So I'll be really surprised. I'll be surprised if that comes back in the next iteration of the World Cup, like next year down in Brazil with the women, or if they have that again when the Euros, for example, take place in Great Britain in 2028, or the next World Cup in 2030 for the men. That's going to be in Spain, which is really cool that they're the hosts and the trophy holders. Spain, Portugal, and Morocco will be the three countries that co-host the World Cup in 2030.
G, I'll give you kind of the last word with this. What is yours? We talked about it. What's your moment of the World Cup?
I think my moment of the World Cup was just seeing the response by casual fans and the outpouring of enthusiasm about the event. Like I said, being up in Dallas, down in Houston, and just seeing, driving down the road, just the regular street, in town, not near the venue, and the welcome World Cup, welcome this, and all the excitement that was around that. And these were not like Coca-Cola ads, or they weren't, part of the ad. They weren't. Messi wasn't on it, and Beckham wasn't on it. It was just there was a. For someone who's been involved in the game since Pelé came in 1975, to see where this was and how it's gone, that's my number one, is knowing how far it's come since then, but especially since 1994 when we hosted it the last time. Just remarkable. And again, those of you anyone who's worried about soccer taking over for whatever reason, don't worry about that. College football is about to start again, and those of us who love and live for college football, it's not going to be harmed by world football. But just the knowing about these things, having a better appreciation for this for the general sports fan, I think there's been a lot more respect, played out there and what this thing really is. It's not just a bunch of guys running around in shorts. It's entire nations coming together and across these borders to really make it a big world party. And that was awesome. And that was my number one.
Gee, I cannot thank you enough for the time, the knowledge, and being able to share this World Cup with a friend and someone who happens to eat, sleep, live soccer has been such a treat for me. I'll never be able to thank you enough. This has just been way too much fun for me.
Well, I appreciate it, Lou. Thanks for letting me come on board on these Thursdays. It's been a lot of fun. For a lot of folks out there, Aggie soccer starts again in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday. So get out there, support your Ags, but also you'll find a lot of that passion is right there in the 12th man and what the 12th man is about in soccer, in volleyball, and football this year. And I look forward to being a fan in the shade this year. It'll be a lot of fun.
A heads up to everyone. Coach G will return in the fall. Coach G will be back on. We're not going to wait 4 years for the next World Cup. Coach G will return in the fall. G, have a good one. Thank you always, man. Be good, brother.
You too, buddy. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Coach G on the D4 Land Services hotline. If you need your land fixed up, land cleared, land excavated, d4landservices.com. Forestry, mulching, pond construction, metal buildings, d4landservices.com. Up next, the rest of the world of sports. Up next, 12:35, Mike Elko, A&M football head coach from SEC Media Days. Part 2 of Listen In. All still ahead.
Listen to The Zone on the Zone app. Thanks to Loyalty Plumbing. The pros at Loyalty Plumbing are ready to serve you 24/7. 24/7. For big emergencies or small.
The Louis Bellina Show. We're rolling on. Coming up at 1 o'clock, Rusty Burson, Aggie historian. 1:35, Marcel Reed will listen. And time now, rest of the world of sports. A very quick look, because it is very SEC Media Days. It's a very maroon and white kind of day here on the Louis Bellina Show, Thursday edition, presented by CC Electric, built on faith, family, community. But the rest of the world of sports, Astros beat the Marlins 5-2 yesterday. Astros swept the Marlins. I've mentioned this how many times now? How manic this season has been if you're an Astros fan like me. Come back from the All-Star break. I'm fired up. I'm spitting nails. I'm ready to go. Get swept by Baltimore. It's over. Let's end this. Let's trade everyone. Let's trade Orbit. Let's get rid of everyone. Let's trade the stadium. And now they sweep the Marlins and, they're 2 back in the West. And I can't do it. Jordan hit his 34th. Paredes his 14th. Pena hit his 9th. Top of the order was Crush Groovin. Lambeau, great start. No decision. 6-2. Here's the most shocking thing from the game. I had to double, triple, quadruple check. Ryan Abreu got a 6 save. Abreu. He's had back-to-back appearances where he didn't make you cover your eyes. I guess, they sent down King out of nowhere. Who's the setup guy? I don't know anymore. That's what happens when they wasted Hader in a non-safe situation, but he hadn't pitched since the All-Star break, so it'd been too long, so they had to get him in eventually, and yeah. I don't even know what to put into that one. That's all I can say. That really, my head spins with this one. I got your Jordan Statavarez? Nah, Jordan Alvarez factoid stat. Oh my God, MVP season is not a question. OptaStats released this. So Jordan Alvarez has at least a share of the MLB lead in the following 6 categories, at least a share. Home runs, RBIs, extra base hits, total bases, times reaching base, intentional walks. All 6, he has at least a share of the lead. No player has finished the season leading MLB in all of those categories since intentional walks became a stat in 1955. Jordan is a bad, bad man. Rangers loss. last night to the White Sox, 4-2. No offense. Of course, they have pitching. The Red Sox had their 15-game win streak, snapola. So everything fell the Astros' way. What a day. When was the last time I said that? So the Astros are 2 back in the West. Rangers lead the AL West at 51-51. 500 and you lead the AL West. They lead by half over Seattle. Astros are 2 back in the wild card. Now that Boston's finally lost a game, Astros are 3.5 games back. Latest power rankings, ESPN.com. I have never cared less about power rankings in my life, but we've always shared them, so I still do them. Rangers 16, Astros 22. America's team, the Cubs, are 16. Dodgers 1, Brewers 2, Braves 3. Bottom, Royals 28, Angels 29, and God bless you, Matt Simon, Matty Statsical, Rockies are 30. Woo! Pretty painful. When we return, Mike Elko, part 2, the Q&A part of his SEC Media Days. This is the Louis Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric. Astros baseball, do not catch that fever. Astros baseball in the zone.
Home, road, or bowl, you can hear Aggie football on the Zone. The Zone.
The Louis Bellina Show. SEC Media Days roll on. It will every day next week, too. Because on Monday, we got to wrap up the coaches we didn't hear. We'll begin the one player per team the Aggies will square off against. That's next week. Time now, Mike Elko, part 2. The Q&A part of his main room.
All right, thank you, Coach Elko. If you have a question, Tommy, Jalen, or Kylie will get a microphone to you. So we'll start right over there, straight down the middle.
Jerry Humphrey III, AO.com, Coach Mario Craver. He kind of exploded on the scene. What's kind of his ceiling like in this offense this year?
Yeah, I think it's really high. I think he's one of the more explosive, dynamic slot receivers I've been able to be around. I think he does a really, really good job of creating separation. He plays bigger than his size. I think he's going to have a really, really big year for us if he can find a way to stay healthy and be consistent week in and week out as we go through this season.
Okay, we'll go straight here on this other side of the aisle, just right across.
Hey, Coach Travis Brown, KBTX. You mentioned earlier how it's the first time y'all have had a quarterback coach that wasn't the coordinator. What are some of the advantages with that, and what has Joey Lynch brought so far?
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage is you have a guy in that building who spends every minute of every day worried about developing our quarterbacks. And that's certainly no disrespect to Coach Klein. Colin did a phenomenal job. But when you're the offensive coordinator as well, you've got a lot of other things to worry about. You got practice planning, you got scripting, you got making sure the meetings run right, you got to focus on the run game. When you have a full-time quarterback coach like we do now with Coach Lynch, his sole priority every day is to create a plan, not only for Marcel, but for each of our quarterbacks to grow and develop every single day. And so I think he's done a phenomenal job of putting a plan together. And then I think each of our quarterbacks has done a really good job of putting in the extra work to come in and execute that plan. And so I just think the dedicated time to the position enhances the ability for a little bit more detailed growth in that room.
Okay, we'll go in the section in front of me about midway back.
Tony Catalina, 24/7 Sports. Coach, obviously you talked about Mario Craver, but you guys brought in Isaiah Horton from Alabama, 6'4" guy, premium X receiver. Marcel was really excited about his addition. Can you just talk about what the priority was to get him on this program and just what he can do for this offense?
Yeah, we've been searching for that size guy really since we've gotten there. And, when Noah Thomas left, we didn't really have that replacement. And I think going out and getting a guy who has the ability to have a big catch radius, who can make the contested catches, who is a difficult cover regardless of how close you are to him, just because he can make contested catches and catch himself open. Been really excited with his development through this offseason. I think he's really bought into what we're trying to do and become a really, really good route runner. And so I think when you talk about the combination of Mario, Isaiah, along with Ashton Bethel Roman and Terry Bussey, I think we've got a lot of depth in that wide receiver room to be really, really explosive.
Coach, we'll go over here on our middle aisle, right in front.
Hey, Coach. Nick Laza from WOG in Athens. Can you give us some insight on the decision-making to promote Holman Wiggins from within to offensive coordinator than looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I think we did both. I think we ran a national search. I think we interviewed and talked to a lot of guys, but I think one of the mistakes sometimes we make is we assume different is always better. And I think in my experiences, that's not always the case. And so I knew who Holman was. He's an extremely intelligent football coach. He's got a lot of experience, not only at Texas A&M, but also in this conference. I think has a resume of unbelievable offensive success, has done a phenomenal job of enhancing our wide receiver room. And so just have a ton of confidence in who he is as a football coach and what he's capable of doing as he moves into that role. And so obviously he'll have to take the step of calling plays, but I think everything else he has already accomplished at an elite level in college football, and somebody had to give him an opportunity, and I didn't want it to be another program, and so we decided to make the move ourselves.
Okay, we'll stay in the center aisle over here on the left.
Hey, Coach. Cord Samuels of Inside Texas. I just want to see if you can comment on the differences, maybe game planning and scheming from when you entered the conference and up to now, considering the game has evolved so much.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest things that has happened is the game has slowed down. I think I just talked about this on Digital Row a little bit. I think with the way we can talk to the linebackers now, the way the offensive coaches can talk to the quarterbacks, I think the need to communicate has become more of a premium, and I think that has changed the game a lot in terms of what people are doing at the line of scrimmage, how people are operating at the line of scrimmage. I also think that the transfer portal has impacted depth among rosters a lot, and so you've kind of moved away a little bit from these uber high-paced, fast-paced offenses, because I don't think they have the ability to sustain that anymore over the course of an entire season. And so I just think there's always evolution in the game, and I think it's shifted more to an at the line of scrimmage, put some emphasis on the quarterback because the offensive coordinator can talk directly to him at the line of scrimmage. And then I think defenses have had to be able to use the communication with the linebackers to be able to evolve and stay up with that.
Okay, we'll go over to our right-hand side along the wall.
Hey, Coach. Bruce Marshall from WHBQ in Memphis. I apologize for wearing the Texas shirt. I got confused looking at the schedule. I promise tomorrow to wear my A&M shirt when Coach Sarkisian talks.
Perfect.
So, anyway, just to get that out of the way. Real quick question about the nil, just trying to wrap my head around it a little bit. And maybe this is something Derek Miller would be, I should ask him. But A&M has quite a nice nil operation going, but institutionally, across all the sports, is nil money earmarked for specific sports, or is it general across the whole athletic department? And does basketball and women's sports, do they have their own Derek Millers who kind of solicit for those sports?
Wow, that's a deep question. First, when you said nil, I thought we were talking about soccer for a second. I think we have tried to do and be a very strategic program and athletic department in the NIL era. I think as we move forward, it's not lost the impact that NIL has in acquiring talent, and not that you want to be in the world of being at the highest end or buying people, so to speak, but the value that you're able to provide your student athletes, it enables you to retain and attract some of the best talent. And so it's not lost the impact that NIL has. And so I think we've just tried to be extremely strategic, not only as a football program, but as an athletic department, in how to navigate that space as we move forward. Related to other programs within our university, I wouldn't want to comment on how they run their program. Certainly Derek Miller for us does a really, really good job of partnering with our athletic department to make sure that we're funding things at the level we need to be able to compete and be successful.
Coach, we'll go in the middle in the section right in front of me.
Hey, Mike, Alex Miller with the Bryan College Station Eagle. You and some of your players have really mentioned the need or the desire to create more turnovers this coming season. I'm just curious how you go about, coaching, teaching your guys to tangibly do that and improve in that area.
Yeah, I think turnovers is a skill. I think your ability to punch and attack at the football and cause turnovers is a skill, just like blocking, just like tackling, just like catching. And so I think we've spent some time in film work trying to show and illustrate where turnovers come from. show some opportunities last year where we had opportunities to create them and we didn't do it properly. Then you try to go out all off season and drill it to the best of you can. I also think ball skills has been a major emphasis point for us on defense. Obviously, we did not have a lot of or enough interceptions last year, and so some of that is maybe being a little bit more zone coverage driven and wanting to give ourselves an opportunity to do that. But another big piece of it is just having better ball skills. And so I think we've put a lot of onus on our second and third level to get on the jugs more, to catch more footballs, to make that a bigger priority in our off-season drill work, just so that we can enhance ball skills across our defense.
Okay, we're going to stay in that same section, a couple rows back.
Carter Carl's on 3. Mike, you and Marcel had mentioned going into last season and in retrospect that maybe the criticism around him not being a passer was a bit unfair. I'm curious if you feel like maybe people still doubt him and what maybe people get wrong about him still.
Yeah, no, I think the narrative around Marcel has been pretty fair. I think he's evolved into a dual-threat quarterback. I think a lot of people recognize that. I think at his highs, he's an elite quarterback. I think he knows he's got to play at that consistent level, and that's not just him. That's us as an offense. That's blocking, that's running, that's catching, that's everything. And I think we know if we can play at his best consistently, he has an opportunity to hit a really, really high ceiling. And so I think last year there was a narrative that he couldn't throw. I thought that was a little bit unjust. I think this year, I think people have recognized what he's capable of now.
Which we're going to go to the back right-hand side of the room, all the way near the back of the room.
Hi, Coach. Jacob Worthen, KRUI Sports. After last year's playoff run, how do you keep this team from becoming satisfied?
I show them our trophy case, and it's empty. And I think they're all very aware of that. And so, I think, listen, we live in a lot of worlds, and so we're obviously happy with the things that we accomplished. We're happy with the direction of our program, but it's also not lost on us that we haven't won the hardware that we're searching for. And so, that gets us into a mindset of growth and getting back to work to go finish this thing a little bit better than we did last year and put ourselves in a better position maybe to compete for some trophies.
Okay, we're going to go straight in front of me, second row. Kirk?
Yeah. Kirk Bolson, Houston Chronicle. Mike, I've known Texas and Oklahoma coaches that have told me they prepare a little bit every week of the year for that other rivalry. Do you subscribe to that kind of thinking, or you wait till Thanksgiving week? And I'm curious if a day goes by without you being reminded of a Texas game by Aggie fans.
No, I don't probably have a day go by without being reminded how important that game is to me, but that's okay. I think that's what's great about college rivalries is the passion that our fan base has for that game and certainly is matched by their fan base for that game as well. I think not only because of the rivalry, but also because of the status of both programs, I think it would be naive to not say that we put a little bit of extra work into preparation for that game because that game inevitably is going to mean an awful lot. It has for the last 2 seasons, not just because of the proximity and the rivalry, but because it seems to have playoff and SEC championship implications as well. And so when you put all of that into that game, it certainly makes a little bit of sense to give it some extra preparation.
Okay, we're going to go down the center aisle all the way towards the back of the room.
Coach, Raymond Parch with ESPN 1037 Lafayette. You bring back a ton of skill position guys. You bring back a ton of guys on the back end as well on your defense. But line of scrimmage, you're having to break in a lot of new guys on both sides of the football. My question to you is, how much confidence do you have that you and your staff are going to get them ready for such a tough schedule?
I got to have confidence because the schedule's coming and we got to be ready. We don't have much of a choice. I think 2 things. I think one, we've had more defensive linemen drafted than any program in the country since I got to Texas A&M in 2018. And so we have gotten into a rhythm of replacing D linemen that have been drafted. I think last year at this time there was a very similar conversation. We had just had 3 draft picks, 1 first rounder, 2 second rounders. We were talking about how we were going to be able to replace that talent, and we did it with a second rounder and 2 third rounders. And so I think we were able to replace it at a really high level. we've got to be able to go do it again. Now we can't just talk about it. We got to go do it. And so we've got to elevate the players that we have in the program and get them into a position where they can go out and they can compete at the level that has become the standard of our defensive line. On the other side of the ball, I think we've done everything that we possibly can to create an environment for us to be successful. You know, we went out and we added 4 transfer portal guys who had starting experience in the SEC. We've recruited at a really high level. We have some extremely talented young players who are chomping at the bit for their opportunity. And so what that has created is a ton of competition for those spots. And so I think competition always elevates. And so our goal is to make sure coming out of fall camp, we have an offensive line that is ready to cohesively function together and play at the level we need them to play to go be successful. And, whether we get that done week 1, 2, 3, that's got to happen as quick as it possibly can.
That wraps up part 2 of our listening. A&M football head coach Mike Elko from SEC Media Days at 1:35. Marcel Reed, what did he have to say to the gathered media? When we come back, we wrap up lunchtime on the Louis Bellina Show. And lunchtime, of course, is thanks to Rudy's Barbecue, home of the green chili still.
The Money Machine. Back to school. It's your chance to win $5,000. And it starts July 27th.
Thank you so much.